But yeah, welcome to the weekly sync. So Eddie, since I'm on demos, I was going to MC, or unless you want to, if you're dying to.
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay, all right.
Better
cool.
at it than me.
So end of the first week, I know this week didn't quite go as everyone planned. Like it was the issue here, that Firebase upgrade threw every team for a loop. It was yeah, not compatible with our hooks library and all that stuff. So it's I think it ended up being a lot more work than anybody expected. So thank you for hanging in there. Maybe we can get that even reviewed during the call so that we can get that merged and everything. And then we'll be kind of caught up. But yeah, I would love to hear from the team. So on a typical software team, you'll do demos and things on a cadence, but a lot of times it's called a sprint review because you're not just demoing. It's actually kind of reviewing how the sprint went. Did you meet the sprint goals? Did you, kind of on a bigger team with a longer duration of the sprint, you would look at things like a burn down chart. So you would have a number of issues that you're trying to complete over the course of the increment, and you would see whether you're, as you're closing issues, that number would go down until you hopefully get to 0 at the end of the sprint. In our case, we just have 1 issue per team, so no burn down charts here, but just to give you an idea of kind of what you might see on a software team. So I guess maybe we'll just take like a minute before we do demos just to talk about just how did it go for you all. Maybe we'll start with the team that did the React router work, since I know that was a little bit simpler. But Aiden or Gabby, do you have how did it go for you?
Okay, was our issue. The first part, we need to understand what is the problem for that issue. The first part, or the first step, is to look in information about React routers. So, we search in the guide, in the document, and I learned to read what needed to use or what is too next to do. And what is very easy because it's only to install the dependence, and after that to copy the code that was in the document, but we adapted for our issue. Yes, and after that, to prove it's all working. Yes, that is all working for the link that add and links. In the first review for the mentor, or our mentor, he said it's possible to change or to move the 2-page link list and add for another component. We did that for the last review. Yes,
okay.
And after part, it was the CSS.
Yeah, sure. Okay, great. Aiden, had you done any pair programming before this week?
Not really. Like I'd had like something where we'd call it pair programming, but it wasn't the same. But not. Maybe a little bit as far as also like working on like algos and like algorithms practice, where it would have like one person like driving and the other person like talking about it, but not very much.
Yeah. Okay. How did that go for you this week?
I think it was good. Yeah, we were productive. I think we got most of it done in our first session. So like we had a session on Monday. I think I don't remember 100%, but I think we did the pull request on Monday, and then on Wednesday we reviewed the feedback, and then maybe Thursday I think we had another meeting on Thursday to just catch up, see if there's anything else, and then Saturday we reviewed the other teams. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it went really well.
Good. Victoria and Andrew. I know you had the hard one. So how did it go for you?
Victoria, did you want to? Okay, it looks like you're about to speak.
You can go if you want. Go ahead.
Well, we had the extra challenge of only one of us being able to code, which is not the case this week. So we're good there.
Cool.
And I don't know, I will do this if you want, Victoria, but I will do it if you want. It looks like, so we did not do anything with items. We have users because this is why I'm thinking maybe you should do it. But I think Victoria found a video or some resource online that was using users. And so that still proves, if I remember what our issue was, we could still use that to communicate with the database, you know, read and write. And that's basically what our issues were to work on. And so right now we don't have anything about items in here.
Oh yeah, I mean, the AC might say the word item. So I think it's just like being able just to read and write data. It doesn't matter what it is really.
Right.
Just proving that the connection is there. Yeah.
For sure. So they did say that does satisfy the criteria. But since I don't know what's coming next, I mean, I can read what the issues are, but still kind of like limited until you get into them. I'm wondering if at some point we might need to switch this over to being items, but for sure we satisfied the acceptance criteria.
Yep.
I wasn't sure about that at first, but Mike, I think it was Mike, said we did. So that's all good. And at some point, let's see, so that's kind of high level. I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything else here.
No, yeah, just yeah, I know you. I don't know. Did you get a chance to pair program at all, or did you, because you didn't have your computer, maybe you weren't able to?
I guess pair programming can look a lot of different ways, right?
Sure. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
She was doing the typing, and then when one of us would have an idea, we would try that out, and then mentors got involved, and at that point it was like time was limited, and
yeah, sure.
And then it was the mentor and me and her, whoever had an idea, kind of making that happen.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. Victoria, like from your perspective, how did it go? I know it was a little rough, maybe.
Yeah, it was a little rough. But I think I really appreciate it. I feel like that feels like that's more real world, right? To have things like that happen. And I really like how a lot of people from the team jumped in, like Gabby would sometimes hop in on a call and like just kind of share some ideas. And like it was also really validating to have even like Eddie, when he was helping out, was like, oh, like I'm not sure if you're so nice to even like a more experienced person be like, no, you can't just write one line and figure it out. Like it will take a lot of trial and error. And I like even sometimes, for example, Andrea would remind me, she'd be like, oh, like make sure to like put your availability. You have to have very limited availability. If you know, can someone jump on a call before X, because anytime after Y I can't do it. So I think that was really the point of this, right? It's like how to work in a team. And I still it was even nice having like even like just with GitHub, which you know I've only really done with myself and like open source thing, but very basic, to have other people be like, oh, do that, no, don't do that, no, you can switch them. But it was nice to have other people going through it with me. So even just the basic operation. So I felt that like, yeah, I mean, it was way more time than planned. And of course, as Andrea alluded to, code is not as beautiful or coherent as we would like, but eventually got it done with everyone's help. So we're getting there.
I so appreciate you kind of hanging in there with it. I know this was a little bit of a mess. And so, you know, we'll take what we learned this week and apply it to next cohort so that people are able to actually do this issue in the 5 hours that we hope that they all take. So, but thanks for kind of pushing through and getting it to done. It looks like it. I was just kind of reviewing it, and it looks like it's right there. So just maybe need a quick review from a mentor, and then we can get it merged. Andrea,
would it be relevant, or you know, do we have time to touch on how this changes the project that we can't use React Firebase hooks?
Yeah. We probably should talk about that. I admit that since I'm not actually actively mentoring a team this time, I'm not up on the details of what the solution should be. I saw things in Slack about how this version you kind of get some of that stuff, not for free, but like it's like kind of maybe it's built into this version of Firebase a little bit, or it's easier to work with or something. I don't know if that's true from your experience, but so maybe what we could do is start a conversation in the cohort channel and see like how are people planning to approach it. See, it's kind of use the hive mind a little bit to land on an optimal solution. Unless Eddie, if you're up on the details of it, I don't know, but.
No, I was trying to read up on it. I usually don't work with React, only when I'm helping out with the cohort. So it was actually kind of fun to like jump in and do that, and then reading up on it while we were working on it. I found a couple of details that we were able to get through. But I think I'll try to read up some more on it this week. That way, in case you guys need any help, I'm there.
Yep. All right, cool. Well, let's take a couple minutes and do some demos too. I want to like so the way the demos usually work are, somebody on the team shares their screen. Maybe you talk through what the issue was, what your acceptance criteria were, just really quickly. Show the work, show it kind of running, and then talk through the code if there's anything interesting about the code that people should know. So the goal coming out of demo, typically, at Zapier, when we do demos on the team, it's really so that the whole team understands the state of the software, including stakeholders. So, we have product managers that we work with and other external stakeholders to the team. We want everybody to understand, what's working, what's not working, how does it work, give them a chance to see it in action in case they want to make any adjustments. So here, our main goal is that all 4 developers fully understand the state of the app at the end of each week, so that, because you're going to be switching up, who you're working with, you're going to be switching out, sort of what part of the app you're working on. So, so with that in mind, I don't know if which team wants to go first, but somebody can share the screen, talk about the AC, show your work in action, and then talk through the code. And we'll take, maybe 5 to 10 minutes for each team. Don't all jump in at once.
Well, I just, listening to you talk, tried to do npm start, and it worked yesterday, but
okay,
it failed to compile.
Every time, whenever there's demos, that's what happens. So I don't know, Victoria, do you have it running? You could also run it on you get like a deep preview deploy through GitHub. It spins up a server where you can show it in action there too if you want.
Yeah, I was trying that earlier and I think it worked. But let me see. I just npm started. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so it localhost in itself up, and okay, so what's like the best way? Like, do you kind of just like go through the acceptance criteria one by one? Like, is there like a template for how we're supposed to demo these things? Or
yeah, I mean, you could even show the issue, like the actual issue on the project board, so people can kind of see, just be reminded of what the problem you're trying to solve.
okay.
Yep. It's a good place to start.
So yeah, the issue is, first of all, we just have to install Firebase for the dependency, as you can see here, and then make a change in the database so it shows up in the app. So what we did is we literally just manually started a collection, and we named it. We named the field, or I guess it's collection document collection. Eddie, because he was helping us at the time, and when we did that here in the Firestore, as you can see, it showed up here. Now we did it as a list, so we were thinking, should we add another one to see what happens? But we were like, we're afraid to break everything. Let's just do the criteria. But if people want, we could try it now and see what happens, or we can move on to the next criteria.
Well, what I'd like to see is maybe change what you have in the database and see if it shows up in the app.
I like it.
capitalize Eddie or something. Or...
And actually, a fun note on capitalization, one of the issues we had is initially name had a capital N and it wasn't in our code. And we went lowercase and things worked.
All
so
right.
let's see what happens here. If we update Eddie to capital E, it already did it. That's what React is.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay. So the next one, that was displaying from the database, but then the next is change in the app that shows up in the database. And once again, we only did one thing and we didn't test it out a bunch because we were like, let's just get this through and not break things further. So we did as suggested and we just created a button. And so when that button was clicked, it created this cities collection. And so LA, and that obviously didn't just come out of nowhere. That's just something from the code, and it was literally, and it was literally just like from the example we were using, and we were in such a time crunch. We're like, we're just gonna use the exact thing from the example and not change it. So here we did a handle click and just use that doc. I don't know how detailed we're supposed to be going through the code, but so we had it here. And then when we clicked, it appeared here. And once again, we didn't try and do anything different.
Okay, so what I would want to see here,
what
I'd want to see here is maybe delete that out of the database, then click the button, and we'll see if it shows back up.
All right. Okay. I remember someone told me how to delete this. I think this is,
I forget too. Yeah.
Here it is. You have to delete in the middle one for some reason. Exciting.
Okay.
Oh. Like fresh. Crossed. Hey, it works.
Nice. Awesome.
Okay.
Very cool.
Great. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, so it's always good at this point just to ask the other team if they, they feel like they understand the code. Maybe we'll look at the code and then if they had any questions. So that just to get everybody, make sure everybody's kind of fully up on how it works.
People have questions about how the code works, and this is the merge one, by the way. So it also has like add lists, add item view and stuff. Feel free to ask. I cannot guarantee that I fully 100% grasp everything either, but we can figure it out together.
Yeah. So, so that set doc, I'm guessing that comes from the Firebase library, right? On line 45.
Yeah, because I believe so. Yeah, here we imported it from Firestore. Yeah.
Okay. I get one question I would have is, does that, let's see, there's a term called Upsert. So Upsert means you either are inserting a new record, or if the record already exists, you can update it. Okay, so I'm wondering if the set doc, could you use that to change an existing record? So let's maybe
I change the name of it.
Yeah.
We're gonna change it to country to Barbados. Right?
Perfect. Yep.
And so I'll go into here and delete it again, right?
Oh, no, actually leave it, because what I want to do is want to see if it'll update it. So leave it there and then just click
the button here.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, cool. God. Okay, perfect.
Cool. That's great.
All right, good.
That's good to know.
That's really good news, because there are, we're going to be creating items later, but then we're going to be needing to update each item with the most recent purchase. So you can use that set doc for that. That's great.
Great.
Cool. Any questions from Gabby or Aiden?
No, no now.
Okay. Aiden, anything?
I don't have any. I don't think so.
Okay. Great. Nice job, Victoria. Good job, Andrea. And Gabby or Aiden, do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, actually, I do have one question.
Okay.
Was the reduce function was that just copied over as well?
Reduce function?
Right.
Oh, I see it on line 31.
Yeah. What about it specifically?
Oh, I was. I guess I just didn't understand what was going on. It was a little confusing, but.
Yeah. So what does that do? Let's see. So reduce
I can
has an
explain.
accumulator. Yeah.
Oh, I think I can explain it.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I would just be guessing. So you actually worked on it.
Yeah. Well, so I don't want to start at too basic of a level, but reduce is kind of one of the more complicated array methods. So I guess stop me if this is too elementary. But so we have an array of documents, I believe. So I don't think we ever did a console.log in here, but this is what it looks like is going on to me. We have the documents from a snapshot from the database. And then what reduce does is it takes it can take more than 2 arguments, but here we have 2 arguments. We have an accumulator and then the current value that it's on. And what that means is the accumulator by default, I think, starts out as well, no, here I believe that array at the very end, right before the end parentheses and the colon, says what we're setting.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. The initial value of the accumulator to be. So it's an empty array. And as we go through the array, each element that we're on, starting with the first one, is referred to as doc. So the first iteration through, we're like basically looping. So the first time through, that first element is doc. That's the current one that we're on. And what we do is we take from that doc, we take the name out of doc.data. Data is a function which probably comes from Firestore somewhere. I'm not sure. We get name destructured from that object. And then we get the ID. So then what we do after that first iteration is we're returning what the accumulator, I'm on line 34 now. We're returning what that accumulator array was. So for the first element, it was empty. And now we're adding an object with that ID and name that we pulled out. That's now our accumulator. So when we go through it a second time, we're starting with that first object that's ID and name. We go through and now we're on the second element. So that becomes doc. So then we pull off the name and ID for that. And at the end, we have an array of these objects, one for every element in the original array. And they all are objects that have ID and name as keys. Was that clear? Was that too wordy?
That was one of the best
That's
explanations of reduce that I've ever heard.
Okay.
Because it took me years to understand what reduce even does. The that whole little loop looks to me like they're working around the fact that you can't directly access the ID off of those objects. Like you have to, like you're like like I bet you the next version of Firestore you'll actually be able to like just request that off the doc.data, but maybe that's just me. So yeah, so basically at the end you get an array of all the IDs and names. This is, you may or may not need to do that. Like if you don't need the IDs, you wouldn't need to go through this whole reduce kind of thing. You could just use that list of docs directly.
Cool.
Nice.
So again, I know we only have an hour and we're almost halfway through it. So anyway, but I don't know why my repo is failing, my local repo is failing to compile. That's bizarre to me. So at some point I need to get that straightened out, but we can move on.
Okay, yeah. So Aiden or Gabby, do you want to take over screen sharing, walk us through your issue, show us it working and then maybe walk us through the code?
Yeah, I don't know, Adrian, you or me? What do you want?
You can go for it. Or do you want to do like the first part and then?
The first part? Okay. Sure. Okay, the first part is our issue was, as a user want to be able to navigate between the list view and the add an item view, so that the interface is clear, delineated between viewing and adding. The first part said, read router DOM has been added as a project dependency. That was the first part we did. Because in the document set, okay, you need only to set the first part is to install the dependence in the project. That is what the first part is here, the instruction. Okay, after that, continue to read the issue set. Links are present and persistent on the bottom of the app. One for the list view, the other for the add and the item view. Okay, and after that, to continue to read, the documentation. I said the only tool needed was to import the router, no, the dependence for real router. Yes, with that, we did in our project here right around in the app.js. After that, to continue to read, said, okay, after that, you need to export that information for to show all data. And said, okay, router, who is the part the dependent you need to use for link. In this case, set home, but or to change for list. And the another link is add. That's it. We don't need 3 links, only 2. And after that, we have the switch. The switch includes through the children, the router, no? Is the document set. So the only to need is to render that information and your script. We show here because we need to show in the first part in the screen. And do that the same. Okay, what is the set? The documentation say, okay, switch router is the link that you needed, is about home, and the second is the another link, yes, in our case is add. But I told you before that our mentor said, okay, you need to change that page for another component. For that reason, to change, to move that information or that part here. Is the view or the page. Import React and export the function add, but in add.js, we need to import that component and also another component for to add. This only for to show that information in the page, like this. And the first part, you leave, and the second, and we have create a button. When to click and leave, show you leave. When I click and add the item, show you button. And persistent is not to move. Sorry for my daughter. Yeah,
that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first part for the React. And the second or the third part and the last that visual review in selected the corresponding link should display in bold text. That part is there. It's when you click in the link here like that, you like to see if you pushing there, you click there, okay, it's there, and you push this, it's leave, okay, where are you? And leave and add. If that class or that active select is the class active is do that, you know, that is the third part. That's it. That's all. Another situation was the CSS.
Well, so the third acceptance criteria too was to make sure that the URL updates when you switch between the views. So I think you might need to click into the URL bar to show us what the URL looks like. So where it says localhost. Where it says localhost. Yeah.
Yes, the localhost. Yeah.
So we're on /add. Okay. Yep.
List. Okay, okay. Let's
Plus
add.
slash add, and then yeah, go to list
List.
and list. Okay, perfect. Great.
Okay.
Cool. Does the other team have any, Andrea, Gab, Victoria, do you have any questions about how this works?
I feel like I don't right now, but as soon as I start working with it, I will.
Yeah, right. So it was interesting, Gabby, you said that you know, because you wanted the links at the bottom, you put the code for the links at the bottom. So that makes sense. It's intuitive. And there's no reason why you would know this already, but there's maybe an accessibility consideration here. So, you know, you can use CSS to move the links to the top or bottom or whatever. Like they don't have to be in that order in the HTML. But if you imagine somebody's coming in to use the app using a screen reader, the things are going to be read off the page in the order that they're on the page. So what that means is that a person on a screen reader would come in, and if you have a long list of items, it's going to have to go through all those items before it gets down to the navigation. So it might actually be better to have the navigation at the top in the HTML order and just use CSS to move it to the bottom. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That way someone comes in on a screen reader, they get the navigation, they can choose their view, and then they know where they are. Then they can read through the rest of the content.
Okay. Okay. You said they only to use for CSS to move this, only to create in the same part, and after is just if I want to move the code in the screenshot, use CSS for that. No, that you said that.
Right. Yeah. But the navigation would actually be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I think that would be a little
Sometimes
bit better.
CSS is so hard. CSS
Yeah, I know,
it's
for
so
sure.
hard. I don't know, Adrian is to say something, but it's so
Yeah.
hard. For me, it's so hard. CSS. I don't know why.
Yeah, we'll try to figure that out and fix it.
Yeah, that's cool. So maybe you can show us the CSS that you used to put those down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's there.
Oh, okay. So you're using Flexbox.
Link list and select list and that. Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Cool. All right. We are well past the hour. So well, as you kind of get more used to doing the demos, we'll try to shorten that time up a little bit, free time up for, next week you have retrospective, which will be a lot of group discussion and things. But good job on your first week. It's really fun to see the app starting to have a little bit of functionality, and just to hear about your experience with pair programming and things this week. Really good work. And thanks again for fighting through that Firebase upgrade. All right. So a lot of people haven't, before they come to Collab Lab, have never done code reviews before. So Eddie's going to do a little learning module on code reviews and how to do those more effectively.
Yep. Let me go ahead and share my screen. You might hear some noise in the background. I have a little 4-year-old who's pretty hyped up on sugar right now. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I love the Halloween theme. It's amazing.
So code reviews.
I need to use the bathroom.
Oh, Aiden.
Not you.
Wait.
Mom.
All right, sorry. So code reviews. So sorry. Oh man. Wait, Lincoln. Wait a second. Let me start off.
I told you I need to use the bathroom.
All right, so we'll do code reviews. We'll start off with what is a code review, then we'll go on to the review cycle. We'll go on next from there, we'll go on to what makes a code review a great code review, how I can help others review my code, how can I review others' code, and exploring the features in GitHub. Also, I would like to kind of note, or something to keep in mind, each team has their own standards or process for code reviews. Anything it says red there, but I highlighted it in white in the presentation. It's things I've experienced from other teams, from working with other teams, but main thing is, you know, Collab Lab has their process. I'm pretty sure as Zapier, they have a more probably heavy or robust or detailed process. I know at the company I work at, I have a pretty, detailed process as well. So what is a code review? First thing is a conversation about a set of changes in the code or going to the code base. It's one of the best spaces to share knowledge and learn from others. It's a collaboration space where you share your work or ask any questions on a feature you're working on or somebody else is working on. It helps you improve as a developer, and it also helps your team decentralize knowledge, so everybody has access to the code review. Everybody could read it and learn things from it. It's a shared responsibility, and it improves the code base quality. And the cycle is pretty simple. Again, it depends on the team, but you open a pull request, someone reviews it, and you receive feedback. You make any changes as needed, and that process will go back and forth depending on how many changes you need to make. And then once everything's good to go, they'll merge the changes, or you'll merge the changes to your staging environment or your production environment. And then what makes a code review a great code review? Don't focus on stylistic changes. Enforce simple standards. There's tools for this, Prettier, ESLint, TypeScript, or type checkers. And then simple would be like you missed the semicolon, you added a space or extra spaces, using tabs, not spaces, or uppercasing on certain things. Advanced would be naming conventions, coding structures, models, and each team has their own. I kind of like for our CSS, I like camel casing, and I like the BEM naming convention. So it usually depends. And then try out the feature locally in your local environment. You're not looking for bugs, you're just looking to make sure the code is running, it loads, and in the cases you guys had, making sure the URLs are correct or whatever the case may be. And these are examples, I don't know if you can see them, of some code reviews I've done with, for my team. So usually I'm not trying to enforce anything or trying to get them to make changes. The thing I love about coding is that there's like 20,000 different ways of doing things. So it's just giving feedback and probably, offering different ways if there was something to do something another way, or just even challenge. I like to challenge the developers and see to make sure they were on the right track or they understand what they're doing. And one of the examples down at the bottom, you see he just named the function get, and I just recommended a more descriptive name for the function than just using get. Another one down at the other bottom was me giving a compliment to someone because they refactored some code, and I thought it was clean and maintainable in my opinion. Any questions so far? Or comments?
So when you mentioned, I saw like not looking for bugs. So that's not like, I didn't realize, like I thought that that's also something that you might try to do if you're able to in a code review. That's not the purpose of it.
No, or at least in my opinion, I don't think that's the purpose of it. I think you don't, as if you're doing a code review, you know, you want to spend, I would say like a max of 30 minutes on that code review. You don't want to spend an hour. And that's better left to QA, I guess, looking for bugs and, you know, testing out the different scenarios. You know, that's what they're there for. Here's a couple of more examples. This was from a previous cohort. So, you know, one of them, he's giving feedback. There's another one where I'm giving feedback to someone else. And then someone gave feedback on the one on the top right. One of the devs gave feedback to one of the junior developers, and you know, she gave it in a positive way, always trying to be positive as well. So, you know, junior dev replied back, she forgot that, and she was kind of using, she was trying to replicate somebody else's code, and then recommended that maybe we should add something to the list of things to fix that she did, because we kind of had a backlog of things developers wanted to fix as well. And kind of like we said, run the code. It gives you confidence as the reviewer. Helps you find things you would just kind of, you wouldn't just find from just skimming through the code. Don't be tempted to kind of skip some of the code reviews or reviewing some of the files. You could get kind of caught in that, you know, it just looks good to me. The PRs, again, could kind of include instructions on how to run the code, you know, depending on the team as well. This one, in this example, Robert's a backend developer. He added something to the database. So usually with Laravel, you have to run your migrations if you're adding stuff to the database. So he kind of let me know before I ran the code, make sure I run the migration because it was needed. And if you're not sure about things, ask questions. It's a great learning opportunity. Usually I'm not writing that much code anymore. So I don't think the developers are more up to date with some of the newer features. And just for me to understand how it's working or keep updated, I'll just ask questions because, you know, that's the time for me to kind of learn. And then kind of like we mentioned, the test is better left off to the QA team. How I can help others review my code, add meaningful PR descriptions, if possible, write meaningful commit messages as well, self-review your code, explain why you did something, ask questions if you're the one creating the PR, helps you make sure, this kind of helps you make sure you didn't miss anything or leave anything, sort of like debuggers or console logs or alerts in the code. And use screen capture tools if you want to put in an example, or if you're making UI changes. There's several tools out there you could use for that. So I'm going to show you some bad examples of code reviews. And if you look down at the bottom, this is a disclaimer. It doesn't represent Collab and then the Collab lab in any way. So they do not approve of this. And I wish these were just stories, but they're actually commits by me, which is just me just putting admin updates and just writing a one-liner, no description, no nothing. Horrible job by me. This is another one where I'm adding something to one of the data tracking tools. Again, there's nothing there. That's scary. And again, this is me, another bad example. And this one I did a little bit better, but I just kind of did bullet points and I was done from there. So, and I didn't know I added another one. Fix the user UID error, does not explain anything. Do not ever do this. Oh my gosh, and I added another one. Yeah, I'm horrible. And then these are some good examples, which you should be doing. The description is amazing here. There's an acceptance criteria, and I love the way the check boxes are there. So as you're kind of like reviewing the code or running it, checking for these ACs, and then you kind of have this kind of like checkbox area to let you know if it was a new feature, if it was a bug fix. And I gotta admit, I actually took this structure and used it for my own team as well. So now we're kind of doing this. So thanks, Collab Lab. And then UI changes. There's screenshots there. So there's the before screenshot, and there's the after showing, you know, what changes were made. And then this is another example. There's the to-do list here that kind of lets everybody know kind of like what needs to be done later on, or what was happening, and what could be done later on to improve it. Or when you're writing code or sending your PR, you can kind of explain what you're doing to kind of help the reviewer understand why some changes were made. Another example, this is from one of the first cohorts I participated in. She added the link to the actual framework or library, CSS library they were using. So it was there for me to just click on and I have to go search it. And I could probably go on for days with these examples, but another one was they kind of listed each file and what they did to each file and updated it. And then understanding GitHub, they have a lot of features out there that kind of help you with this pull request or while you're reviewing it. So the amount of files changes, and I look at this a lot when I'm doing code reviews, because if I see 24 files changed, it kind of scares me. A lot of changes being made in one PR. The amount of lines updated, you know, the next, the navigation here to help you kind of run through the different changes. And then you could always kind of see like their commits as they were going before they submitted the PR. And I think GitHub, or if you're using GitLab, there's a lot of features you could use that help you kind of, you know, do this, write your PRs or code review them as well. And here you kind of get kind of a helper that lets you know you kind of viewed the different, helps you keep track of what you're reviewing. And then here I listed a couple of resources for code reviews, for writing code reviews and how to be effective in it. And then would like to hear your thoughts, your experience. How do you feel this week with the code reviews or creating your code reviews or any previous experience? So.
That was a lot, and thank you, by the way. I'm not sure if you mentioned this because it was a lot of really great information, but does it help? I would think it would help to do like smaller commits and each, as you said, with a good commit message so it's just much more bite size. And so does that help with the code review? Because I do think it also helps on the developer's end if they ever have to undo something, because then they can just pick and choose small things to undo.
I'll go first. I think, yeah, I love it when they can make changes without adding in too much code and keeping it short. That way, when I'm doing the code review, if I have 24 files to review, like I'm just gonna go crazy. It's probably gonna take me an hour. If it's shorter and easier for me to swallow, you know, that's easier. I could kind of run the code, kind of review, say 3 files change, and the limited amount of code they kind of put in, and move on to the next. So I think so. Andrew?
Yeah, I totally agree. So just to explain what I put in the chat, the atomic commits and small PRs are super helpful. And an atomic commit is so I don't know, when I'm working, I tend to I'll do something like I'll add a button and then I'll be like, oh, while I'm here, I'm just going to fix the CSS too. And now it's not an atomic commit anymore. I should really be committing the change to the button and then in a separate commit be committing the change to the CSS. So each thing is very clear what each commit is meant to do. You can kind of tell a story of how the feature gets developed that way. And then as like Eddie was saying, like small PRs are much easier for reviewers to consume. So a lot of developers, in my experience, get caught up in thinking that one issue on the project board should equal one PR. And that's not actually true. So you can have several PRs that get merged to accomplish the functionality in the issue. So in our case, you could even, it's probably overkill in our case because these are relatively small in scope anyway. But you could imagine like a PR that just adds the dependency, and a PR that adds the button, or like you could break it down so each of the code reviews is very simple, kind of building towards the final thing. That's a little bit of a contrived example because those are probably a little bit too small in a real setting, but just kind of make the point. So one of the things, Eddie, I love the like you had that comment, you left a comment there for one of the reviewers that you were almost did like a self-review of your own code, and that's super helpful as well. So sometimes if you read back through your own PR before you ask for external feedback as if you're code reviewing it, sometimes you catch things like, oh, whoops, there's a console log, I got to take that out. But also, it's totally okay for you to be unsure about something that you're asking someone to review. There might be like, a section where, like with that reducer in the thing, like, I'm not sure if this is really necessary. You could leave a comment for the reviewers in the PR, say like, this seems maybe like it's overkill, but this is what the doc said to do. What do you think? That kind of question. So that the reviewers, it helps them kind of focus on where they should spend most of their attention when they're reviewing your code. So it really is, like Eddie said at the very beginning, a conversation between you and the reviewers to try to like get the code to a good place.
I would also add in, it's easy to get caught up in refactoring. So you're working on one feature and then you kind of see somebody else's code and you're like, well, I just want to like start refactoring this, and that kind of leads you down a rabbit hole where you're refactoring a bunch of things. Now when it gets to QA is not only like reviewing the feature you did, but then they have to go run a test on other features that didn't have anything to do with that feature you were working on. So that's one thing like I love to push. And I know like the junior devs get kind of mad at me because they're like, hey, I'm just trying to improve or not just junior devs, any devs. I'm trying to improve the code base and it can't be this way. And I'm like, okay, we'll take a look at it later or create a ticket for it. But right now, we have to complete this feature and QA doesn't have the time to go, test the new feature and make sure you didn't break anything with the other changes you did.
Yep, 100%. Any other comments or questions before we move on to talking about this week's issues? All right, cool. Nice job, Eddie. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me for a moment. I do that thing where, come on, Zoom. I don't know why Zoom always throws my window off to the side when I try to move it. All right. Rearranging stuff. Opening up the chat just in case. All right, cool. So this week, Gabby and Andrea, you're going to be working together, and Victoria and Aiden. The issues for this week, I will go through each of those. So, all right. So first issue, as a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so I can start tracking purchased items. Makes sense. This is a shopping list app. So we're getting to the place where we're setting up a new shopping list. All right. So Now, a shopping list consists of a set of items associated with the user's token. Okay, so let that sink in for a second. We're not doing username and password for this app. We're just going to use a token that we're going to store in local storage. I don't want to assume everyone's familiar with what local storage is. So local storage, you can use cookies, right, to store some data on a person's computer, but local storage is a little bit more of a modern interface for that. So basically, it literally creates a file on the user's computer with a set of key value pairs. So we're going to be saving the token, saving a token to local storage. And that's going to be associated with the set of items. And that's how the app is going to know to show these particular items to that particular user. Okay. So when a new list is created, the sequence is we are going to generate a new unique token. We'll save the token in local storage, and then we will just take the user back to the list view. So there'll be an interface for creating the token. Once the token is stored in local storage, we'll send them back to the list view, and the list view will be responsible for reading the token, retrieving the items, showing them, and all those kinds of things. But and we'll get to that in a second. So we have a script. Shoot, this actually needs to be updated. So we now have an npm package where you can import this tokens file. So we have to do another little cohort-wide update for this, I think. So anyway, that's a new thing this time around. But anyway, we have a function you can use to generate the tokens. That's the gist of it. For users who do not already have a token in their local storage, we should show a button or a link on the home screen that allows them to create a new token, create a new list. So clicking on the button or link generates a new token, saves it to local storage. All right. Once a token is created and saved, the user is redirected to the list view. So whatever that view is for your app. So for users who already have a token saved in local storage, when they open up the app, they should just be redirected or shown the list view sort of automatically because they already have that token. All right. So let's look at the wireframe. So eventually, your home screen will look something like this, where you have the option to create a new list or join an existing list. I'm going to use the annotation feature here, because I can. For this issue, you're basically just doing this part. You're just going to have a button. User's going to mash the button. I'm going to get rid of that now. All right. They're all drawings. Okay. That was a fun little diversion. Okay, so you're just going to basically create this new list button. And then at that point, you'll store the token and then send them back to the list view. So yeah, so don't try to implement all that functionality on that home screen just yet. Yeah, just create the create button. And then yeah, are there any questions about this one? So it's really about giving an interface to create the token, storing the token in local storage, then sending them back to the list view for the shopping list. And we will clarify this part because just going to take a quick look and see if that's still in there. Yeah, so the token file is no longer in that source directory. So Lewis, one of the other mentors, created this npm package we can use. So I'll just make sure that everybody has that information. We'll go through and update the list so you know where to go to get that. Any questions about that?
Yeah, yes. For that local storage, we need to send all the teams use the same name for that local storage. Yes, no?
Your app, like all four of you, should use understand what the name of that token is. Yeah. Yeah,
we need to the variable for the local storage. The name for that local storage when it's saved in the Fiverr, we need to send the same for all.
Yeah, there will only be this one place where we set the value. but there will be multiple places where we need to read the value. So that's a really good call out. I really like that. Like maybe one of the first things you do is, as the four of you, as the developers on the team, decide what you're going to call that key. Just so both teams kind of have that in mind. Way to think ahead. I like it. All right. Any other questions? Sorry about this one before we move on.
So the token is a JavaScript thing. This is not, I mean, this is what I'm thinking. Correct me if there's anything wrong with this. It's not a Firestore concept or function.
Oh no, it's much less.
It's
much
just
less
like
complicated. Yeah.
just a, and now it's going to be an npm package. So it's just going to be some function that we can get through npm that will generate a unique ID for each person.
Yep, exactly. And the tokens are just 3 random words separated by spaces. So you'll call this function, it'll return you a string, you'll just stuff that into local storage, and then the rest of the app will then know to associate everything else that happens with that user.
So basically, let's say like one of us like starts working on it, we're all going to have different tokens because we're all going to have our something each in our local store. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So you could each have your own. You could share a token so that you can build up kind of a list of shopping items that have all the data you need or something. You might want to have even like a token that's sort of like associated with like a QA shopping list or something that has all the properties that you want in there. But as you're developing, yeah, you're going to churn through a bunch of tokens probably as you're working on things. Create a token, delete it, make a new one. And if you're not familiar with it, but it's a little bit different in Chrome, but you can go into the into the developer tools and actually interact with these. You can delete keys and values and things. You see, this is just from being on GitHub. There's a bunch of stuff that's in here, but you can get rid of those, delete them. You can even manually add keys. I could add a token. I don't know. Right, I can just kind of manually do that. So yeah, you'll get familiar pretty quickly with interacting with local storage as well. All right, cool. Let's move on to the other one. So so issue 4, as a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so I can start recording purchases. So now this is, you may not already have caught on to this, but it's going to be a little bit tricky for it to be, one team is making it so you can create a list and the other team is already working with the list, right? So this is where you may want to just manually set a token in your in local storage, the team that's working on this issue. And if you've coordinated on what that key is, there won't be any changes needed when you go to merge. It'll just, the two pieces will work together. So as long as you agree on what that key is called. So, but in this one anyway, so a shopping list item consists of the following data points. So before we were talking about a shopping list consists of a unique token saved to local storage and then showing the user the list view. The shopping list item consists of the name of the item, how soon you're likely to buy the item again. So to keep it really simple, we just use these 3 sort of buckets. So soon, so you're going to buy it in the next 7 days. Kind of soon, you're going to buy it in the next 2 weeks. Not soon, you're going to buy it in the next 30 days. And then the last purchased date. So that's what an item is in the database. It should have those three properties: the name, how soon you're going to buy it, and the last date when it was purchased. Does that make sense? In terms of a schema, that's going to be your schema for the item.
Yeah, I mean, that part is the data in database, no? Is the name for the collection on the document, no?
Yeah. So yeah. You'll have a collection of items, and then each of the documents will have these 3 data points. Yep.
Yeah.
Name, how soon, and last purchase date. Yep.
That is, we need to change user for that. and that's in for the backend
Yeah,
database now is user. We need to change for that name inside the database for that information for that key value.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you'll be changing out whatever you had, whatever data you were changing for this. Yeah, for sure. All right. So the acceptance criteria. So the user should be presented with a form that allows them to enter the name, select how soon that they're going to buy it, and when they submit the form, the item gets saved to the database associated with the user's token. So you notice that we don't say here that a shopping list item consists of a name, how soon, last purchase date, and a token, right? There are a couple of different ways that you can approach how to associate the item with the token. So you may want to talk to your mentors about what what's a way that makes sense. Like one way that I've seen it done is that you create a collection that you name the collection after the token, and then you just have a list of items inside that. I have seen teams, and actually when I implemented it, I probably wouldn't do it this way again, but when I implemented, I had the token on each of the items, and then I would just query for all the items that have that token. That's another way to do it. So there are multiple ways to do that part, but associating the items with the token is the sort of important part. Okay, Victoria had to go. All right. And along with the item name, so the item name will be a string. You're going to save an integer corresponding to the estimated number of days until the next purchase. So this how soon should be expressed in the database as 7, the number 7 for soon, the number 14 for kind of soon, and the number 30 for not soon. Okay, so name of item will be a string, how soon will be an integer, and then last purchase date should be, they have an actual date type in Firebase. So probably best to just work with their native date type there. Dates are hard in programming. So any help you can get from the framework is probably you should go with that. You can set the last purchase date to null initially. So what that represents is that you're able to add something to the list without actually purchasing it for the first time. So anyway, so you'll save a string for the name, a number for the how soon, and then null for the date to initially when you add an item for the first time. And then we will just display the items as a simple unordered list on the view after they're added. So you can, we'll work on styling and kind of refining that list later, but for now you can just kind of list out maybe just the names or something in an unordered list. So maybe let wireframe for this as well. So again, later on, oh, sorry, this is for the form. So your form should have, a field to enter the name, should have, radio buttons or something like that to decide how soon, and then, a button to actually add the item. And there are some tips in here around sort of accessibility. So all these little stickies have, make sure you have a for attribute on the label, a label tag for your each of the elements. You might want to group the radio buttons with a field set element. That helps screen readers understand that that's a collection of things. And then as a usability point, I would select one of the timeframes by default. So whatever you think is reasonable, the most likely thing that users are going to need here, have that selected by default so that the user doesn't have, like, just enter the name and hit add item and it's going to be correct most of the time. Does that make sense? Instead of forcing them to choose one of these. And then the other thing is when they hit this add item button, give them some kind of feedback that the operation worked. So it could be an alert or something like that. You might decide that you add the item and you take them right back to the list and they see their item added to the list. That's another way you could do it. So maybe think through sort of what would be a good interaction for the user here. And then eventually your list, oops, I didn't mean to open a window. I need to open a new tab. All right. Eventually the list is going to be something like this. You can see it's color coded, it's got details and delete, and there's a filter thing up here. For now, just straight unordered list, just ULs and LIs, no styling is needed. Just the whole point here is just to get those items into the database and show them on the page. And we'll work on all this other stuff later on. Yep. All right, any questions about this? So you're gonna build a form that allows users to enter the name, choose how long until the next purchase. You're gonna put it in the database in a, with a string for the name, an integer for the how soon, the field, and then a date field that's gonna be null when you first order it or first enter it. Does that make sense? Kind of in terms of what we're going for here.
I think so.
Okay. All right. So the moment you all been waiting for, which team? So Gabby and Andrea, you're one team, and Aiden, you and Victoria are going to be the other. So which team wants to take which issue? Do you want to be working with the tokens file and local storage? Do you want to be making a form and displaying stuff on a page?
I don't know, Andrea.
Uh-huh.
What do you want?
Is that cool with you, with Aiden? If you do
Three
number
or
4?
four?
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I have is Andrea and Gabby, you're going to be doing issue number 3. And what we'll do is I'll do the little pairing bot in the channel, so we have that that recorded. But cool. So as you're working this week, just as questions come up, please just ask early. I know with the Firebase thing, I think you all did a good job of saying like, wait, something's wrong here, and like let's kind of getting help from the mentors, and that's exactly how it should be. We really are trying to keep the scope each week to be pretty reasonable. So, if you're getting into this and it's like, oh, I can't figure out how to save something in local storage or anything like that, feel free, why the mentors are here. So feel free to kind of draw on them. Is everybody comfortable with creating the branch and getting the branch pushed up and pulled down? Are you feeling okay about that process? Okay. All right, since we're already over by 15, I won't have us do that on the call, but again, if you run into any kind of weirdness with that, raise the alarms in the channel, we'll get you worked out. So
yeah, I didn't get myself unmuted fast enough, but I don't know why. I don't, it was complaining something about Firebase. I pulled this down yesterday. We can discuss it later. I know we're already over, but
okay. Maybe, Andrew, I'm happy to
issue.
stay, after everybody else goes, we can stop recording and we can just get on and work that out really quickly if you want to.
All right.
But yeah, good job, everybody. Nice demos. Good job on the presentation, Eddie. And yeah, we'll see how you do this coming week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
all right,
thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Bye.